I want to tell you about my friend Luis. Luis grew up in a very poor family. He had six brothers and sisters, and they all lived in a small, broken house. His father was blind and couldn't work, and his mother sold things on the street: fruits, candy, anything she could find. They didn't have much money, and many nights they went to bed hungry. Luis often told me how hard it was to live like that. His clothes were always old and torn, and he never had new shoes. In school, he couldn't focus because he was always worried about his family. But even with all these problems, Luis was very smart, especially in English class. His teachers always said he had talent, but Luis didn't believe them. As he got older, things became even harder for Luis. He started spending time with the wrong people. His new friends smoked, drank, and caused trouble. Luis wanted to fit in, so he joined them. One night, they decided to steal a car. Luis was scared, but he didn't want to look weak in front of his friends. So he went with them. But just as they were about to break into the car, something changed in Luis. He looked at the car, at his friends, and then thought about his mother and father. What would they say if he went to jail? Would he ruin his life forever? At that moment, Luis backed away and said, "I can't do this." His friends laughed at him and called him a coward, but Luis didn't care. The next day, Luis made a big decision. He remembered how good he was at English in school. So he decided to study it again. He found free lessons at the community center and worked very hard. He told me, if I learn English, maybe I can get a better job. Maybe I can change my life. And that's exactly what happened. Luis started his English lessons at the community center. At first, it was very difficult. He felt embarrassed because he had forgotten many things, and most of the other students were younger than him. But Luis didn't give up. He studied every night after helping his mother sell on the streets. One day, his English teacher noticed how serious Luis was about learning. She asked him to stay after class and said, "Luis, you have great potential. If you keep working hard, I think you can achieve something big. These words gave Louis hope. As time passed, Louis improved a lot. He started speaking more confidently and even helped other students in the class. His teacher encouraged him to apply for a job at a local tourist agency where they needed someone who could speak English. Louis hesitated at first because he didn't feel ready, but his teacher pushed him to try. Louis got the job. It wasn't a big position, but he was in charge of helping tourists find information and answer their questions in English. It was the first time Louis felt proud of himself. With the small salary he earned, he started saving money and helping his family. Opportunities continued to come. After some time, Louis applied for a scholarship to study English at the university. He wrote an essay about his life and how learning English had changed it. To his surprise, he won the scholarship. For the first time in his life, Louis could see a bright future ahead. Louis' story didn't just inspire me, it inspired many people in our neighborhood. Everyone saw how he went from almost stealing a car to working hard, studying, and building a new life. Whenever someone doubted themselves, Louis would say, "If I could do it, so can you. Just believe in yourself and work hard every day." Today, Louis teaches English at the same community center where he started. He helps others who were just like him, lost, scared, and looking for hope. His life isn't perfect, but he's happy and proud of how far he's come. Louis always says, English didn't just give me a language, it gave me a second chance at life. As Louis' friend, I can say his story is one of the most inspiring I ever seen. Watching him grow from a scared boy with no hope to a man full of purpose taught me something important. Life can be tough, but it's never too late to change. Luis showed me that our past doesn't define us. It's our actions and decisions today that shape our future. His journey proves that hard work, determination, and believing in yourself can open doors you never thought possible. To anyone who feels stuck or hopeless, remember Louis' story. If he could rise above poverty bad choices, and challenges. So can you. The road might be hard, but every small step forward counts. Keep pushing, and one day you look back and realize how far you've come. Lewis didn't just change his own life, he inspired everyone around him, including me. And for that, I'll always be grateful. When I was little, I used to ask my parents, how did you meet? How did you fall in love? They would smile at each other, and my mom would laugh softly. Then they'd tell me their story, and I never got tired of hearing it. Now I'll share it with you, just as they shared it with me. It all started many years ago in a small town. My dad was a quiet, serious guy who worked at the bookstore. He loved reading and spent most of his free time with books. My mom, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. She was cheerful, outgoing, and always full of energy. She worked at the bakery across the street from the bookstore. One rainy afternoon, my mom ran into the bookstore to escape the rain. She didn't have an umbrella. She was completely soaked. My dad was behind the counter, and when he saw her, he offered her a towel. Here, you can dry yourself, he said. My mom smiled and said, thanks. It's like the weather wanted me to come here. She looked around the bookstore and asked him, do you have any books about baking? My dad smiled a little and said, yes, we do. Come with me. He took her to the cooking section and showed her a few books. My mom was impressed. You know a lot about books, she said. My dad replied shyly, well, I work here. From that day, my mom started visiting the bookstore more often. She always found an excuse to stop by. Sometimes she asked about books, and sometimes she just said hello. My dad was nervous at first, but he started looking forward to her visits. One day, my mom said, you're always so serious. Why don't you smile more? My dad didn't know what to say, but then he laughed. It was the first time my mom had seen him laugh. She said, "There it is. You have a nice smile." Soon they started talking about other things: life, dreams, and favorite books. My mom would bring him cookies from the bakery, and my dad would recommend new books for her to read. Slowly but surely, they became friends. But it didn't stop there. One evening, my dad surprised her. He came into the bakery after work with a small bouquet of flowers. He handed it to her and said, "I thought you might like this." My mom blushed and said, "Thank you. They are beautiful." My dad smiled and said, "I like talking to you. Would you like to have dinner with me sometime?" That was the beginning of their love story. My parents told me their first date was simple but unforgettable. My dad took my mom to a small cafe in the town center. He was so nervous that he kept checking his watch, afraid he would arrive late. My mom, on the other hand, showed up 5 minutes early, wearing a bright red dress that she said was her lucky dress. When they sat down, my dad was so shy he barely spoke. My mom laughed and said, "Come on, don't be so serious. It's just me." That made him relax, and soon they started talking like they always did at the bookstore and bakery. They talked about their childhoods, their dreams for the future, and even their favorite foods. My dad told her he wanted to own a library someday. My mom said she dreamed of opening her own bakery where she could make cakes and pastries that would make people smile. At one point, my dad accidentally knocked over his glass of water. He was embarrassed, but my mom just laughed and said, "It's okay. That's how you know it's a real date. Something funny always happens." After dinner, they walked home together. The stars were out, and my dad pointed to the sky. "Do you see that constellation?" he asked her. My mom shook her head. "No, I don't know much about stars," she admitted. My dad smiled and said, "I'll teach you someday." As they walked, my mom said, "I've never met anyone like you. You're kind, thoughtful, and Little awkward, but in a good way. My dad laughed and said, "And I've never met anyone like you. You're so full of life. You make everything brighter." From that night on, they were inseparable. They spent their weekends exploring the town. My mom would teach my dad how to bake cookies, and my dad would read poetry to her, even though he said he wasn't very good at it. My mom loved it anyway. A year later, my dad did something surprising. One evening, he brought my mom to the bookstore where they first met. He had closed it early, and there were candles on the shelves and flowers everywhere. My mom looked around and said, "What's all this?" My dad got down on one knee and said, "This is where we met, and this is where I want to start our next chapter. Will you marry me?" My mom cried and said, "Yes, of course." They got married a few months later in a small ceremony with their closest friends and family. My mom says it was the happiest day of her life. My dad agrees, but he always jokes, except for the day I met her in the rain. Their story inspires me so much. It's proof that love can start in the most unexpected places, a bookstore and a rainy afternoon. Now they live together in a small but cozy house. They had me a few years after they got married, and they always say I'm their greatest adventure. Even now, when I see them together, it's like they are still that young couple who met on a rainy day. My dad still surprises my mom with flowers, and my mom still bakes his favorite cookies. They laugh together, tease each other, and share everything, just like they did when they first fell in love. Their love story didn't end with their wedding, it keeps growing every day. Watching them makes me believe that true love is real and worth waiting for. That's the story of my parents, my favorite love story. The Smith family moved into our neighborhood a few months ago. They were a nice, quiet family, just parents and two little kids. Not long after they settled in, they decided to adopt a dog from the local shelter. I remember talking to Mr. Smith about it when I saw him walking the dog one morning. "His name is Max," he said, smiling. "He's been through a lot, but He's a part of our family now. Max was a big, fluffy German Shepherd mix, and you could tell he had a gentle heart. The kids adored him, and every time I passed their yard, Max would be playing fetch or running happily. The Smiths always said adopting Max was the best decision they ever made. But no one realized just how important he could become. One summer evening, something happened that none of us could have imagined. I was sitting on my porch when I saw fire trucks rushing down the streets. I followed them to the Smith's house, and that's when I saw smoke coming out of their windows. My heart sank. I could see Mrs. Smith and the kids standing outside, crying and holding each other. But Mr. Smith was still inside. Later, I found out what happened. Mrs. Smith told me that while they were having dinner, something in the kitchen caught fire. The flames spread quickly, and everyone rushed to get out. But in the chaos, Mr. Smith had gone back in to grab some important documents. The smoke was so thick that he couldn't find his way back out. Max, the sweet dog they had adopted just weeks ago, noticed what was happening. Mrs. Smith said Max started barking loudly, pulling at her arm as if he wanted to go back inside. She was hesitant, but before she could stop him, Max darted into the house. Max ran into the smoke filled house without hesitation. Mrs. Smith was panicking, unsure if she would ever see her husband or the dog again. Just when the fire seemed to grow stronger, Max reappeared, dragging Mr. Smith by his sleeve. Mr. Smith was coughing and weak, but he was alive, thanks to Max's bravery. The firefighters arrived just in time to put out the fire. But it was clear that without Max, things could have ended much worse. Mrs. Smith told me that Max didn't hesitate for a second. He knew something was wrong and acted like a true hero. She said, "We thought we were saving Max when we adopted him, but it turns out he saved us." The story of Max spread quickly around the neighborhood, and he became a local hero. People came by to give him treats and pats on the head. Max didn't seem to care about the attention. He was just happy to be with his family, wagging his tail and playing with the kids. Max's actions reminded us all that sometimes, even in the most unexpected places, true heroes can be found. I'll never forget what Mrs. Smith said to me that day. Max wasn't just a pet to us, he was a blessing. After Max became the neighborhood hero, his protective instincts and intelligence continued. Mrs. Smith shared more incredible stories with me over coffee one day, and I was left speechless. One rainy night, the family was sound asleep when Max began growling softly near the front door. Mrs. Smith, now attuned to Max's instincts, knew he couldn't act this way unless something was wrong. Mr. Smith checked the door and noticed a shadowy figure trying to pick the lock. Before Mr. Smith could react, Max barked fiercely, scaring the intruder away. The next morning, the police confirmed there had been a string of burglaries in the area. Thanks to Max, the Smiths avoided becoming victims. During a picnic at a local park, the youngest Smith child, Emily, was playing hide and seek. Panic set in as the family searched high and low, calling her name. Max immediately picked up her scent and led them deep into the woods. They found Emily sitting near a creek, scared but unharmed. Mrs. Smith told me she couldn't imagine what might have happened if Max hadn't been there. One afternoon, Mr. Smith had a severe allergic reaction to something he ate. His throat began to close, and he couldn't speak to ask for help. Max noticed something was wrong and started tugging at Mrs. Smith's clothes, barking nonstop until she followed him to the living room. Realizing the emergency, Mrs. Smith called an ambulance just in time. The paramedics later said Max's quick actions might have saved Mr. Smith's life. Every story Mrs. Smith shared reinforced how much Max had become more than just a pet. He was family. She ended our conversation by saying, adopting Max was the best decision we ever made. He's taught us so much about love, loyalty, and courage. Max's story has inspired not only the Smith family, but the entire community to value their pets and recognize the incredible ways they can change our lives.